Okay, so we've added our queries to the data model. Now, the big question everybody is wondering is, so where's the data model, right? The data model is in Power Pivot. Okay, so Power Pivot is the environment that hosts the data model in Excel. So you should see a tab over here called Power Pivot. That's if you've ever activated Power Pivot. But if you've not, then you need to come to Data. Anyone with Excel 2016 and above or Excel 16 and above should see data right here. Should you see a you should see a green icon like this over here. When you click on it for the very first time, you have the option to enable the data model. And once you enable it, it takes you into the data model by activating manage the data model. So for those of you who have never activated it, you click enable and that takes you into the data model. For those of you who have activated it, you can just click manage data model over here, or under your Power Pivot tab, you can click manage over here. Both of them do the same thing. So I click that and I'm in the data model currently. Now, the data model is fairly simple. You see all your queries over here. So you have these sheets over here. These represent your tables that are queries. You can also bring a table directly from Excel into the data model without going through Power Query, right? That's also possible. Now, these are all tables that display what you have in there. This is the data view. Now, when you click here, you come to the diagram view. The diagram view is where you do the matching, where you create the relationship to create your data model. Basically, your data model is when you create relationship between multiple tables, right? Good. Now, for what we want to do, we only need GL, COA, and calendar. These three tables help us create this table. So they're just helper tables. We don't need them anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them off. I can't delete them here. I need to go back and then remove them from the data model through load to, right? So we go back here, click this, and where we have our queries and connections. By the way, if you can't see your queries and connections, if this is closed for some reason, all you need to do is come to data, click on queries and connections, and they come back. Good. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to take these ones off. So we just right click on this, load to, and then we say here where we have add to data model, we uncheck this, we click OK. Okay, and it's gone. Right, load and it's going to take it off. So you see only connection only, right? The rest are rules loaded, but it's connection only because it's taking up the data model. We'll do the same thing. Right click on this, load to, and I'll uncheck this as well. Click OK. Good. So now these are only connections, but these have been loaded into the data model. When you keep something as a connection, it means you're just storing it in memory in Excel, right? You don't want it to be physically loaded into the spreadsheet. So it's just in the cache of Excel, right? You can write formulas to actually pull this from the data model using cube functions, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to stick to normal pivot tables. So we'll come here, we'll come to manage. Good. So now we have these three. So we have this table and these two. Now, in creating your data model, you need to understand the concept of fact tables and dimension tables, right? Now, fact tables are the tables that contain the regular reoccurring activities of the data model, right? So if you have, let's say, a restaurant, right? So your fact table is going to be the transaction table, the one that captures the transaction or the orders, right? And your dimension table are tables that give you more details about some fields in the fact table. So if you take a field like accounts, right? If you want to know the name of the account, right? Then you can check the COA to know the name. Because if you understand what we are doing so far, when you come to the data view, you realize that account is just a number field, right? It just has numbers, right? There are no text, just numbers. So how do we know the name? To know the name, we need to come to COA, take this column, and then we know that, oh, this is what consultation fee, right? So this table gives us better particulars for this particular field. Anything we need to know about this field, we can find it in this table. So this is the dimension table, and then GL is the fact table. So dimension tables at the top, fact tables at the bottom, and then we link to the fact table. Same with calendar table. Okay, this is the dimension table, and this is the fact table. So we are connecting transaction date to the date over here, and then this helps us know the month of the transaction date, the month name, the year, the quarter, so on and so forth. right? So let's do that. So I'm going to drag this to this guy. All right. So we have an error right here. It says that the COA account called details has some blanks in there, right? And that affects the connection. So we need to take off any blanks we have over there. So I'm going to close this, go back to Excel by clicking this, right? Now to go back into Power Query, right? You just double click on the particular query you want to go into. So COA, I'll just double click on it and I'll come here. Okay, so we need to take away any blanks. So I'm going to click this and then blanks are indicated by now. So you just uncheck this and then the blanks are gone, right? So we don't have any blanks in there. Good. Let's check in Geo if we have some blanks in there. Transaction, this. There are no blanks. I don't see any blanks. Okay. Now, another way to remove blank rows is you can just select, then come here, remove rows, and then say what? Remove blank rows. And that will remove any blank rows that pop up in there. Okay, so that's fine. So once we have this done, we can click close and load, and then it's just going to update the data model with our changes we've made so far. Okay, so we'll come back into our data model once this is done loading. Okay, we can come back here, manage. Now let's try this again. So I'm going to link this guy to account details. And the relationship is collected. So it's a one-to-many relationship because we have one item here that can show up many times here, right? Mind you, I can also drag this and do the connection from top to bottom. Is that okay? It doesn't necessarily always have to be from bottom to the top, right? It's still what one-to-many. And then the filter relationship floats this way. Is that okay? Good. So once you've done this, you can now start creating analysis or start creating pivot tables from this report. You simply come here to pivot table, right? You can click pivot table reports. Okay, I can create this a new spreadsheet. Good. Okay, so now once we click that, we can create our pivot table report. Now, the good thing about creating a data model is you can create a report for more than one table. Is that okay? So I can select something from COA and then I can select an amount from GL. Now, in creating pivot table reports, all you need to understand is you need to know which field comes into the value section, right? So if you're doing an analysis, maybe you want to see the amount, okay, by maybe accounts. You drag account to rules. Do you get it? Now, these are numbers. So the account numbers are over here, and then these are amounts. Now, you want to know the account names instead of their numbers, right? So you can uncheck this, come to COA, and then you can take the names rather from here, and it still works. Is that okay? Because you've created a relationship between the two of them. Is that okay? So let's create a fairly simple one. Let me uncheck this. I'm going to create a report that shows at a very high level, at a class level, what the amounts are for each of them. So I'll bring the amount to values, and then I'll come here to name and bring that to rules. Okay, so cost of sales is 0. Current asset is this. Current liability is that. Equity is this. Fixed asset is this. And then we have other income, revenue. We have a blank over here. Let me double click to see what a blank represents. Oh, okay. So move to retained earnings. So this is an entry that's moving income or moving profit and loss lines into the retained earnings. We'll deal with that later. Let me delete this. Good. But as you can see, so over here, you can actually see the amount summarized for these high level items. Now, if I drag statement to filters, I can filter this by income statement, which is all 000. I'll explain why that's the case, and balance sheet, which is all this, right? So you see, so just by creating a data model, we can simply do these analysis, right? We can create these reports without having to, do any layouts whatsoever. Pivot table does that for us, right? If I bring in the main lines under this, so under current assets, you can see the various current assets, under current liabilities, and equity, and then under what fixed assets, you can see all these. Okay. Now, the first thing you probably will say is, well, these are not actually laid out in the way normal balance sheets will be. You know, a balance sheet, you have to have fixed assets first, and current assets, and so on and so forth. So how can we reorder these? Okay, the good thing is we can do this in Power Pivot as well. So when we come back to Power Pivot under Manage, right, we can come to Data View, come to COA, and then we can just simply say that sort this column. So we select revenue, come to sort by, and we're going to sort this by the account code, this. I'm going to click OK. All right. So I click OK. And then when we come back, you notice now fixed assets at the top, current assets follows, then you have current liabilities, and you have what? Equity. Is that okay? Good. We can also sort the others as well. So let's do that quickly. I'm going to sort this guy by main, account code for main, and I'll sort details as well by account code for details. Good. So let's do that. Great. So now we've had that done. So it sorts it accurately for us. Good. Now, if I change this to income statement, I'm getting zeros throughout. The reason why you're getting zeros throughout is because the income statement lines are always being written off, right? Like I showed in the previous video, we write them off to move them into the balance sheet. But then for the purposes of the user, when they select income statement, they should be able to see the values over there. The write-off should work at the background to move profits into the balance sheet. So you're basically going to filter the write-off lines when you come to the income statement view. So under description, there are two types of descriptions we want to filter out. That's move to PL and move to retain earnings. These two shouldn't apply. So when I click this, select all, I just want to take these two guys out. You see? So once I do that, then we see our profits, we see our numbers again. So those two lines are what are writing it off to zero. But when they don't apply, then it comes back. So what we can do is we will create a special amount, right? That doesn't take into consideration descriptions that contain these two words, right? Move to P&L account and move to retain earnings. These two will be excluded. You get it? It's very simple. We create that, we call that measures. Okay, so let's try and do that. So let's come here to measures. Let's come to new measure. Okay, now under new, when you're creating measures, they have tables you can place them under, right? So when you create a calculation, you can place it under the GL, CO, or calendar. Now, one thing I also learned in Finex, right? You can create a table for your measures, dedicated for only measures, so that it comes clean and you don't mix up calculations with actual real data. Is that okay? Because everything we have so far are actually data coming in from the source. So we want to separate our calculations from that. So what we can do is we can create a table that will be dedicated for coding our calculations, right? So to do this, it's very simple. Just copy an empty cell, any empty cell, go to manage, and then once you copy it, you see this paste is activated. Just click on the paste, and then you type my table. Sorry, my measures. Right, so this is going to hold all your calculations, your measures. Click OK. Good. So you now have the measures, and you have one column called column. Is that okay? Now you can just right click on this, right? And then you can say hide from client tools. Okay, so this column can't be used by a client. Now let's go back into Excel. Good. Now we can come to measures, new measure, and then under my tables or under table name, you have your measures. Good. Now that is where we're going to keep all our calculations. Is that okay? So let's call this amount without write-off. So amount without write-off. So we're creating an amount that doesn't have write-off. Okay, you can give a description over here, but I've sort of given that in the name. Okay, let me zoom in. I'll hold control and then zoom in. Okay, good. So this is going to be a simple calculate function, right? Calculate is a very powerful function in DAX. All you need to do is give an expression and then you give your filter expression. Okay, so I'm going to sum amount, so GL amount, right? The good thing is this is the same architecture with AppSheet name, right? Table names have the same, so GL amount, just like how we have it in AppSheet. So it's very cool. Good. And then your expression is going to be A and D, and GL description is not equal to, and then the first one was moved to P stroke L, and then the second one is what? GL description is not equal to moved to retain earnings, I believe. Okay, let me zoom out this way. So this, that. Let me close the bracket again. So sum this and the blah, blah, blah. Let's check. Good. So it works. We come to whole number over here, 1000 separator. I'm not too sure if this was the right description, but let's just check and see. Okay, good. So we don't have anything like that. Let me come here. Move to P&L account, move to retain earnings. Okay. Measures, manage measure. So that's if you want to edit something you've already done. So move to P&L account, move to retain earnings. Okay, so let's take this filter off. Good. So you notice now when I take off the filter, this works. Do you get it? So this is giving us a calculation that the filter was giving us over here. So now we don't need this filter anymore. We have this guy that is going to do the calculation for us without the filter. Is that okay? So this is one of the kind of changes or calculations we'll be doing, right? That will help us to make sure that the amount is always going to come in for the income statement. For balance sheet, we're going to use the same amount column. So if I copy this and I come here and I create a balance sheet report, right? Click OK. What I'm going to do is for balance sheet, because I want retained earnings, you see now retained earnings isn't showing, right? Because we filtered out the lines that moved it to the retained earnings. So we're just going to take this guy off for balance sheets. And then for this side, we're going to keep this one. Good. So this way, now we have our income statement here. And then here we have our balance sheet. Okay, so we're going to draw the curtains over here. When we come back, we're going to look at more changes we need to do because of our data structure.